Yes. In the first step, glycolysis, glucose gives two molecules of pyruvic acids. Those two molecules of pyruvic acids from cell cytoplasm, they enter into matrix of mitochondria. Both the pyruvic acids enter into matrix of mitochondria, and at a time one pyruvic acid, it enters into Krebs cycle that is taking place in matrix. Pyruvic acid in its first step, it reacts with coenzyme A. This is coenzyme A. Coenzyme A. Coenzyme A. When it reacts with coenzyme A, simultaneously two reactions are taking place. One is decarboxylation, removal of carbon dioxide. Another is dehydrogenation. That released hydrogen is used by NAD, and NAD becomes NADH2. In the first step itself, 3 ATPs of energy is generated in the form of NADH2. So that in first step, simultaneously decarboxylation and dehydrogenation took place. Now that pyruvic acid becomes acetyl coenzyme A. Acetyl coenzyme A. How many carbons are there in it? In pyruvic acid, 3 carbons. Now it is having 2 carbons because 1 carbon is released in the form of CO2. So that number of carbon in acetyl coenzyme A, 2 carbons. In the matrix of mitochondria, there is one 4 carbon compound, that is oxaloacetic acid. You can remember that oxaloacetic acid. It is the first compound that fixes CO2 in a C4 pathway. That is oxaloacetic acid. Having 4 carbon, it is there in matrix. Now this reacts with acetyl coenzyme A, leading to the formation of citric acid. Citric acid is having 6 carbon. 2 plus 4, 6 carbon. Citric acid. As citric acid, a main compound formed in Krebs cycle, is having 3 carboxyl groups. Hence, this Krebs cycle is also named as tricarboxylic acid cycle or TCA cycle. Even this Krebs cycle is also named as tricarboxylic acid cycle because the most important and stable compound formed in Krebs cycle is citric acid. It is a tricarboxylic acid. That's why Krebs cycle is otherwise said to be tricarboxylic acid cycle. Already you know about there are monocarboxylic acids in organic chemistry like formic acid, acetic acid, benzoic acid, and there is a dicarboxylic acid, that is oxalic acid, having the formula COOH, COOH. In the similar way, the example for tricarboxylic acid is citric acid. Hence the name tricarboxylic acid cycle or TCA cycle. Once this citric acid is formed, it undergoes both decarboxylation and dehydrogenation. Decarboxylation in the sense removal of CO2, and dehydrogenation. The hydrogen released from this is used by NAD plus, becoming NADH2. 3 ATPs of energy is generated here also, leading to the formation of alpha ketoglutaric acid. Alpha ketoglutaric acid. But is having 5 carbons. It is having 6. Now it is having 5 carbons because 1 carbon is lost in the form of CO2. And now this alpha ketoglutaric acid undergoes decarboxylation so that CO2 is released. Dehydrogenation, that is received by NAD plus forming NADH2. Once again 3 ATPs of energy is generated here also. And very interesting energy coin which is formed here, that is GDP, guanosine diphosphate, gets phosphate forming a GTP, and this GTP is equivalent to 1 ATP. The energy present in 1 ATP is equal to energy present in GTP. But we consider ATP is an energy coin in biological system or biological currency. But GTP, before it is used in biological system, is interconverted into ATP and gets used. And now this alpha ketoglutaric acid becomes succinic acid. It is having 4 carbons because 1 carbon is lost in the form of CO2. And now this succinic acid undergoes dehydrogenation. That hydrogen is received by FAD and FAD becomes FADH2 and it becomes malic acid. Remember, this step is very important step and a unique step in a Krebs cycle, because wherever the dehydrogenation took place, the formation of NADH2 took place. But only in this step, the dehydrogenation which is taking place, that hydrogen is received by FAD and becomes FADH2. They may ask me a question, in which of the following step FADH2 is formed? They will give the reactions like succinic acid into malic acid into oxaloacetic acid, and citric acid into alpha ketoglutaric acid. The right answer is succinic acid into malic acid. Only in this step FADH2 is formed and the energy present in FADH2 is 2 ATPs. And in the final step, that malic acid undergoes dehydrogenation. As usual, NAD plus gets that hydrogen, becomes NADH2, 3 ATPs generated here, and that oxaloacetic acid is regenerated and takes part further. Okay, and in this cycle, how many NADH2 are formed? 1, 2, 3 and 4. 4 NADH2 are formed. It means 4 into 3 ATP, that is 12 ATP. And 1 FADH2 is formed. 1 into 2 ATP, because in 1 FADH2, 2 ATPs, 2 ATP. And 1 GTP is formed, is equal to 1 into 1 ATP, 1 ATP. Hence, 15 ATPs are formed. When 1 pyruvic acid enters into Krebs cycle, 15 ATPs are generated, and these 15 ATPs are generated in the form of 4 NADH2, 1 FADH2 and 1 GTP. They can make any NEET question. How many ATPs are formed? When 1 pyruvic acid enters into Krebs cycle, 15 ATPs. They will give the answer in the form of question. When 1 pyruvic acid enters into Krebs cycle, 15 ATPs are formed, but those 15 ATPs are formed in the form of 4 NADH2, 1 FADH2, 1 ZTP. They can make question like anything. Yes, and in addition to that, they may ask the name of the enzyme which takes part during the formation of citric acid. That enzyme is citrate synthetase. That enzyme is citrate synthetase. You should remember that. Okay? And in addition to that, in which of the following step FADH2 is formed? Conversion of succinic acid into malic acid. In the similar way, they may ask another NEET question. In which of the following step NADH2 is formed? 1. Pyruvic acid into acetyl coenzyme A, right. Citric acid into alpha ketogluteric acid, right. Alpha ketogluteric acid into succinic acid. Your malic acid into oxaloacetic acid. In many steps, NADH2 is formed. But they don't ask those questions. But this is very favorable. In which of the following step FADH2 is formed? Succinic acid into malic acid, FADH2 is formed. They can ask like that. And now, from our glucose, how many pyruvic acids are there? 2 pyruvic acids. But when 1 pyruvic acid entered, 15 ATPs are formed. But from our glucose, 2 pyruvic acids are there. Then, the net gain of energy in the Krebs cycle, that is 15 into 2, 30 ATPs. 30 ATPs. See, we have to understand the question. How many ATPs are formed when 1 pyruvic acid enters into Krebs cycle? 15 ATPs. Net gain of energy in Krebs cycle, 30 ATPs. Because from our 1 glucose molecule, 2 pyruvic acids are formed. So that we should write the net gain 30 ATPs. Because 1 entered 15 ATPs, 2 pyruvic acid, another pyruvic acid enters in the same way, another 15 ATPs, like that. While dealing with glycolysis, net gain of energy in glycolysis, 8 ATPs. And net gain of energy in Krebs cycle, 30 ATPs. This is net gain in a TCA cycle. And net gain in EMP pathway is 8 ATPs. Totally, net gain of energy from glucose, how much? See, here confusion is there. Net gain of energy from EMP pathway, 8 ATPs. The net gain of energy from TCA cycle or Krebs cycle, 30 ATPs. Then they would ask the question, net gain of energy from 1 glucose molecule. 8 plus 30 is equal to 38. If you write 38, it's wrong. Because during glycolysis, 2 NADH2 are formed. No doubt, in each NADH2, 3 ATPs are there. But NADH2 yield those ATPs only in elementary particle when they come into mitochondria. But those 2 NADH2, when they come to mitochondrial elementary particles, while crossing the membranes, they consume 1 ATP each. So that even though those 2 NADH2 yield 6 ATPs, but while coming to mitochondria to release the ATPs, 2 ATPs are consumed. That's why minus 2 ATP So that 36 ATP. 3 NEET questions. Net gain of ATP in glycolysis, 8 ATPs. Net gain of ATPs in Krebs cycle, 30 ATPs. How many ATPs are formed when one pyruvic acid enters into Krebs cycle? 15 ATPs. Net gain of energy from one glucose molecule, 36 ATPs. You should not write 38 ATPs. They would write 38, but right answer is 36 because 2 NADH2 which are formed in glycolysis, if they wish to release the energy, they have to cross the mitochondrial membrane where 2 ATPs are consumed. They yield 6 ATPs, no doubt, but 2 are consumed where the 4 will be there. That's what? Instead of 38, 36 as well. Okay? But I have mentioned in NEET, there would be an extension of syllabus. Here, one question I just mentioned, when one pyruvic acid enters into Krebs cycle, 15 ATPs are formed. They would ask another question. How many ATPs are formed when citric acid enters into Krebs cycle? Very simple. You don't count these 3 ATPs. You start from citric acid. How many? 15 minus 3. So that 12 ATPs. They will start when citric acid enters into Krebs cycle. How many ATPs are formed? 12 are formed. Even they may make another question. How many ATPs are formed when alpha ketoglutaric acid enters into Krebs cycle? Minus 3 ATP, minus 3 ATP from 15 ATP means 3 to 5, 8. 8 ATPs as well. How many ATPs are formed when one succinic acid enters into Krebs cycle? 2 plus 3, 5. How many ATPs are formed? One malic acid enters into Krebs cycle. Just 3 ATP. They can make questions like that as we know the total pyruvic acid cycle as well. It's about pyruvic acid. The gaining is NADH2 and FADH2. We are knowing NADH2 is having 3 ATPs of energy and FADH2 is having 2 ATPs of energy, but they are just like check. To get the money, those NADH2 and FADH2 have to go to the elementary particles present on crystal. So that NADH2 yield 2 ATPs and FADH2 yield 3 ATPs. NADH2 yield 3 ATPs and FADH2 yield 2 ATPs. Those are energy coins. That is in final step. That is terminal oxidation.